Welcome to another episode of Running Tales, and we've got a real treat for you this week. We have Jeff Kase from the USA who's going to tell us his unique story and how he got into running. So over to you, Jeff.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm very honored to be a guest on your podcast. Shout out to, I believe it was probably Stu Vincent that originally told you about myself. My running story started when when I was in grade school and I tried out for the baseball team, and I got cut by my coach. I was probably 15 years old, and I never had real good hand-eye coordination. And my father wanted me to play baseball and basketball. So when I got cut from the baseball team, I said, well, this summer I'm going to get in shape so when the basketball season starts up in the following fall, I'll be in shape and I'll make the team. So I went out for a run on the first day, and I think I ran 5 miles, and then I ran 5 miles again on the second day, and then my third day I did a 10-mile run, and a friend of mine said, maybe you should think about the cross-country team and forget about baseball and basketball. So I contacted the cross-country coach and tried out for the team, and made the varsity team that year, and that was the beginning of my running career. I had a pretty successful career in grade school, high school as we call it over on this side of the pond. I grew up out in Michigan. It's the funny looking landmass in the middle of the United States that kind of looks like a mitten. Yep, hold on one moment, Michelle.
I'm sorry, I'm leaving your last one, bud.
Oh, no problem.
Okay, have a good night.
Don't
Okay,
you just love podcasting? Keeping it
sorry
real,
about
Jeff. Keeping it real, Jeff. So you
sorry
were
about
saying
that. I was just informed I'm the last one, so we should have no more interruptions.
that's fine. That's what you get for doing podcasting while still at work.
Yeah.
So you
So
were saying, at school you did pretty well, and then what
yeah.
happened? Where did it go from when you left high school?
Well, I went undefeated my senior year in track, and had a very successful high school running career. As I said, in that landmass in the middle of the United States that looks like a mitten. And I was recruited by the University of Delaware cross country and track coach. Delaware is on the eastern seaboard. If you swam across the pond, you'd run into Delaware.
Okay.
Well, maybe it's kind of tiny. While I was driving from Michigan to Delaware, that coach left, went to another college, and I ran my freshman year in college. I did run varsity cross country, but I did not care for the coach that much. Well, that's my canned excuse.
You didn't bond. Did you not bond with your coach?
That's my canned excuse. In hindsight, I had more important things like drinking and partying to be had. So I put running on the back burner, and that choice there did not make for a very successful university career. So after a year and a half at university, I dropped out, and I'm no longer, I stopped running, after the first cross country season in university, and ended up getting going to a 2-year college, getting my degree there. It's too late to make a long story short, but a long story short, I spent the next 29 years coming very close to losing a battle with alcoholism. Didn't do anything really, any real physical activity to try to better myself. It was just 29 years of freewheeling through life. Had some tragedies in 1998. The woman I was living with, I came home and found she had died in her sleep while I was away at work. And that was related to alcohol and alcohol withdrawal. And I just kept trudging through life. 10 years after I came home and found her, I realized that I just didn't care. I was enjoying, I told myself I was enjoying life, but there's just one sliver of it that wasn't treating me well. And I realized that sliver involved every time I was in that sliver of the pie, it involved drinking. So I decided that I just needed.
What was the trigger? Was it at the university, getting a taste of it and being a young man and going out with the lads, and it just escalated from there?
I think it was just the freedom. I was out from underneath my parents' controls. I partied a lot when I was in grade school, even though I was a successful runner. I partied an awful lot in high school, and then once I got to the university, and I was about 600 miles. What's that?
That's fine. We work by miles, but you was away from home. The freedom,
Yeah,
just
freedom, and it just.
Did none of your running buddies? Did you not have any strong running community feel at the time? Because you're saying you were successful at running. It sounds like you had no network. You just had this freedom. You sound like you was alone, and that's how you got drawn to the alcohol and down that path. Am I correct?
Yeah, that has a lot to do with it. I had a nice network where I grew up, but then when I moved away, I formed another network, but they were of
bad choice.
Yeah. I joke. I'm going to fast forward, and we'll get to this part of my story, but I have been sober for 12 years now, and
congratulations.
Thank you. AA played a big part of that, and I do tell folks in the AA meetings that I've lived my whole life. I've just allowed myself to be guided by peer pressure, and I just happen to be choosing better peers over these last 12 years.
So what point made you go and get that help? Was it the fact you lost your wife, or did that make you spiral even more into alcohol when you went home and found your wife?
We were partying pretty heavily at that time, so I'm not sure there was much more partying I could do, but I did continue on partying for 10 years, and very, very much a lot of that was self-medicating to try to combat the depression. And I won't lie, it was some very bleak years of my life after she passed away.
That's understandable. You lost the woman, your love of your life.
Yeah, exactly. but 10 years later, for the first time in my life, I lost my job, and I had made up all sorts of excuses why that wasn't my fault, and I ended up. I was staying at a friend's house. At the time, and I continued to compete in the sport of dog agility, which is where you guide your dogs through obstacle courses. I was competing in a dog agility competition a couple hours away from home, and was staying at a friend's house. Was pretty well blacked out drunk. I don't think I want to go into all of the details. Let's just say I
Fair
was
enough.
highly embarrassed by my actions that weekend, and that was the weekend I said, you know what, enough is enough. I need to do something.
So it was yourself. You got yourself. You knew you hit rock bottom. And what was the
Yeah.
steps? What did you do? Did you go straight to an AA meeting, or?
No, I was dating a girl down in Florida that was about a 500 or 600 mile distance relationship. It was probably the only kind of relationship I could hold on to at the time, because I've always said hitting rock bottom wasn't that bad. It was the bouncing and skidding along rock bottom for several years that really beat me up. And I decided, it's like, okay, I need to quit drinking. She agreed. She was a nurse. She agreed I could come down there. She had me scheduled for a 90-day rehab. She felt that was what I needed. Me being stubborn, I said, no, I'm not going to rehab. And the day I was getting ready to leave to drive down there, the brother of my wife that passed away came over the house, and he said, well, when she passed away, all the coroner and toxicology and pathology reports and medical examiner, they all reported back she was a 29-year-old healthy woman, and they could find no known cause of death. When her brother heard I was going to quit drinking, he showed up at the house and said, word on the street is you're going to quit drinking. I said, yeah. He said, well, we didn't want to burden you with any more guilt, but they strongly suspect that the cause of her death was seizures related to alcohol withdrawal. And at the time, I did not know that withdrawing from alcohol can actually kill you. I've since learned, and I've learned in the rooms of AA that it's one of the only drugs that will actually can cause death from withdrawal.
Oh wow! Okay.
He said, well, we heard on the street you're going to quit drinking, and we didn't want to see the same thing happen to you. So
that must have been nice for you, Jeff, to feel the love. You
Yeah.
hit rock bottom, and then there's someone from your family that's showing you so much love and support. That must have made you feel good.
Oh, absolutely. It's at that point in my life, I didn't feel like I had any friends other than alcohol, and to see that someone actually cared about me meant a lot. So I took that knowledge. I drove down to Florida, and the first day that I decided to quit drinking, I had 9 martinis, and then I had 8 martinis the second day, and 7 martinis the third day. And The woman I was dating and myself, we slowly weaned myself off, and after 12 days, got to where I went an entire day without alcohol. And I'm going to say I'm still friends with her, but at that point in time, she looked at me and said, "Okay, my job's done." She goes, "I've been done with you for quite a while now. You need to drive back home and get out of my life." So,
Oh, right. So that made you feel back low again. Okay. So what
so
happened? Did you go back to the bottle?
I did not. Funny thing, on my drive home, the very first place I stopped was a tavern to have lunch, and I sat down at the bar and I ordered lunch, and I heard the shake of the martini glass, and to this day, 12 years later, I hear a martini shaker shake, and it catches my attention. And lo and behold, the bartender sets a martini in front of me and says, "I made this by mistake. You can have it." And she had no idea that martinis were my drink of choice or anything. I was hours
No.
away from home. And I just pushed it back across the bar, and I explained to her what I'd just gone through. And I said, "Thank you very much, but I think I'll just have a ginger ale."
Well
And
done.
I had lunch. I drove home. I went a couple of weeks, and they weren't bad. They weren't bad days. I just, I wasn't drinking. I ran into a friend of mine, and she said, "Word on the street is you quit drinking." I was pretty well known in the community for my drinking, so word had gotten around. And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Well, what are you doing about it?" I'm like, "What do you mean, what am I doing about it? I just stopped drinking." She said, "Well, if you don't do something active about it, you're going to be back out there in short order." So she strongly suggested I try AA, which I hadn't even thought of. And so I went to the AA meetings, and I didn't like the first one I went to, but someone had told me, try another meeting. And I tried another one, and that one wasn't as awful. And I kept hearing, keep coming back. And at this point, I'm like, you know what? The decisions I've been making on my own have not done me any favors. So I'll listen to these folks. And after a while, the meetings weren't so terrible. And somewhere along the line, and I can't really tell you when, I started looking forward to the meetings. And here I am 12 and a half years later, and have not picked up a drink since the day I put one down.
That's just amazing. It just goes to show that how strong will a human being can be. And, from 12 years to now, and you've not had one drop in 12 years.
No, I mean, it crosses my mind often, and I can't take credit for a lot of willpower. It took a lot of people and a lot of help to keep me on the right track. It's I don't think for
But
myself now, I don't think I could have quit drinking on my own. I did for a couple of weeks, but I think on my own I would have been drinking again.
But how do you feel now, Jeff, that people's perception of you has changed? You was most probably known as the town drunk. That's the impression I've got so far.
Yep.
To
Oh,
now,
absolutely.
this is someone who's sober, who's completely turned his life around. You're inspirational. What was the response, especially as you've kept it going?
It's hard for me to wrap my head around, because I feel like I'm just a regular guy, but quite a few people have come up to me and said that I've inspired them in one manner or another, whether it's with my drinking or and the ability to quit drinking or some of the other things I've done in my life. After I quit drinking, I gained about 60 pounds, which it's about 4.5 stones, I do believe.
And what was you before then? Was you skinny because all you would drink was alcohol?
Oh yeah,
You wouldn't eat
yeah.
food?
I was malnourished. At the last couple of years of my drinking, I would be vomiting up blood on a regular basis. I would drink to black out almost every night.
Can I ask, is your health good at the moment?
It is good. Even at my worst points in drinking, I would go for my yearly physical with my doctor, and they would run lab work, and they would always report back that my kidney and liver functions were fine. And I would ask them to look at the name on the top of the paper because I could not believe that.
They're talking about Jeff Kase here. So what, can I ask, back in the day, on a bad day, what was your intake of alcohol? Just so we can get an idea.
I would go to the bar almost every night and spend 3 or 4 hours at the bar, and then I'd come home, and I was going through a half gallon of 101 proof bourbon and a half gallon of Tanqueray gin every two to 3 days.
Whoa. Okay.
So that's in addition to the whatever 5 to 10 drinks I'd have at the bar before I got home.
Wow. So, that you were definitely a party boy. Even if it was on your own, you was a party boy. But wow, yeah. Jeff, to suddenly go from Florida to wean yourself down slowly from the advice from your brother-in-law to then, you said it was over 12 days. So you didn't do the 90 days rehab. You did 12 days with your ex-girlfriend. And then that was it. From that, you left Florida and not looked back or never looked at a drop of alcohol since.
Nope.
Wow. Huge respect to you. Huge. Well done, Jeff. Well done. I've just heard this story for the first time, and I'm amazed because you've just proved human spirit. It can be strong. Even when you think you're weak, it's not.
Yeah.
Your mind can. But I want to now. We've heard about the dark side of Jeff. Well, I want to hear. Oh, go on. Tell me one more.
One moment. The next time you see our mutual friend Stu on a park run, he can tell you some stories.
Don't you worry. I'll speak to him next time I see him. Don't worry. So, and Stu Vincent, by the way, listeners, is who put me in contact with Jeff and said this is an amazing story. And I'm really thankful that Stu has put us together, Jeff. This is just wow. But I'm excited because I want to know about your addiction that's good since the alcohol. So 12 years you've been sober, but tell us about how you picked up running again. And I'm dying myself to know, what have you been doing running wise?
Straight up vanity is what got me back into running. I got a call about 5.5 years ago.
Can I just ask roughly how old you are, just so listeners can get a rough idea?
I'm 56 years old.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So 5.5 years ago.
So I was 51 years old. Got a call from my old grade school, and they said that I'd been inducted into our athletic Hall of Fame back out in Michigan. And I thought to myself, well, that's great. And then I looked at myself in the mirror, and I was larger than a house. And I was like, there's no way I can go back out to my hometown, get inducted in the Hall of Fame, larger than a house, and probably be out of breath taking 3 steps up onto the stage as I received my my induction. So it was at that point that I decided, okay, I've spent 7 years resting on my laurels. Oh, look how great I am. I quit drinking. But you know what? I didn't do anything else with taking care of any other part of my life. And I realized that, you know what? There's a lot more to it. So I decided I was going to get some of this weight off. And I was like, you know what? I used to run. So I started running, and my knees got really sore. So I decided to purchase a bicycle.
Okay.
And I used the bicycle, and I rode, and I rode 5 weeks. 5 weeks after I bought the bicycle, I did my first century ride, first 100-mile ride. And I got the weight off of me. And then in the fall, I just woke up one morning and I saw that there was a local 5K race going on. So I told my my current wife, Sarah Fox, if she gets around to listening to this podcast, there's my shout out. I shouldn't get in any trouble now.
He gives you brownie points, yes.
So I said, I'm gonna try my hand at a 5K race. And so she was working that day. So as she headed off to work, I just looked at her and I said, she said, well, good luck with your race. And I said, oh, I'm going to win it. She's like, you are not going to win it. You're 50 years old. You haven't run any races. And I replied back, what's the point of entering a race if you don't step to the start line with the whole idea of winning it? And
I love it. Love this. Yes.
Up until that point, I'd kind of told myself when I got back into shape that I wasn't going to compete. I wasn't going to race. I'd had enough of that in grade school. But that morning, I let my guard down. My natural competitive tendencies took over, and I went down to the race. And I ran. It was a local 5K. It was a small race. I believe I finished just under 20 minutes, 1956 maybe, and called my wife.
Excuse me. Sorry. So you're 51, and what time did you do?
I did a 1956 with. I hadn't done any running at all. I'd only been
Only 5 weeks of cycling.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay.
Well,
So
no, I'm sorry.
your body remembers.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. It was about 3 months of cycling.
Okay. But still, you got under 20 minutes on a 5K. Did you win?
I came in second place overall. So I called my wife and said, you know what? You are absolutely correct. I did not win. However, I did come in second place overall. I said, there's some young punk that got me.
So what happened next then? You got the buzz, didn't you?
Yeah. That then I was like, you know what? This running stuff, I remember how much I enjoyed it. So I started running pretty consistently after that, and I'm like, okay, well, I've done a 5K race. I don't know if I really like that distance. Let me see what else I can do. And I found a 50-mile race New Year's Eve. It was about 12. Maybe 11 or 12 weeks out from that first 5K I ran. And I'm like, well, that seems like there's enough time for me to get in shape for a 50-miler. So I signed up for the 50 mile race, much to the chagrin of my wife. She's like, we didn't even talk about this. You just signed up for it. And I'm like, well, it's just a race. She goes, it's 50 miles. And I'm like, all right, well. So I went down to the Pistol Ultra Marathon. It's run along Pistol Creek. So it's
Is it a road? Is it a road
it was
marathon or trail?
a paved footpath.
Okay.
It was a 10-mile loop. They started the 100-milers at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they started us 50-milers at 8 o'clock at night.
Okay.
So I went to the start line in the morning to wish all the 100-milers off and cheer them on. Then I went back to my hotel room and had a complete meltdown. I probably broke down and cried 3 or 4 times, thinking, what was I thinking? I'm so arrogant. There's no way I can do this. I'm just so full of myself. It's ridiculous. You know, what a jerk, blah, 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 blah. And just had a miserable day at the hotel room, and returned back to the start line at 8 o'clock at night, stepped to the start line and was thinking, this was a big mistake. I can't do this. I'm ridiculous. And as soon as the gun went off, all those doubts and fears just vaporized, and I got down to business. And
did it feel good once you started running? Because it's what you just described there sounds like me at the start of all of my 15 marathons that I've done. I'm like that. What am I doing? And then the gun goes off, and it's like, yeah, I can do this.
You know what? I have that feeling as I step to the start line of any race, whether it's a 1-mile race or a 100-mile race. I'm undertrained. I didn't prepare enough. Those feelings just, they overwhelm me. And then as soon as the gun goes, for some reason, they just vaporize and you get down to business. So this was like I said, they had 100-milers 12 hours earlier. They put the 50-milers on the course to kind of be like natural pacers. And so I ran 5 loops of the course, and, didn't really know where I was at placement wise. I knew I had to run 5 loops to finish. And
it was in the dark as well, because it sounds like you was running through the night. So how did you find that experience?
It wasn't bad, because this particular footpath was pretty well lit for the entire
okay.
night. And I finished before sunrise, and I got the finisher's medal, which was really neat. The center of it spun, and it had kind of a picture of the race course in the evening with stars, and then another picture of the race course in the day with the sun shining. And I was a little confused because I finished before the sun came up, so I ran my entire race at night.
What did you ask? Can you take this back and remove the daytime?
Well, I had no idea that most people would be using the daylight hours to finish their race. I got back to my hotel room, and one of the women that I compete with in dog agility, her husband's an ultra marathoner, so they were watching me, and she shoots me a message on social media. She says, I saw your post where you said you finished, and I'm like, yeah, thank you. He goes, you do realize you finished 5th place overall, and you won the 40 and over Masters division by almost 2 hours.
Wow, congratulations. Wow.
And,
okay.
and so I had no idea, and I didn't feel like I'd run a really strong race, but of course, the first time doing a distance like that, you don't know what you're supposed to feel like.
Like I seriously want to know, how was your legs after 50 miles, especially when you've not trained properly for it?
They weren't so bad. I was on the third floor of the hotel, and I used the stairs the following day to load in and out of the hotel room. The, they they weren't so bad. I did when I first got back to the hotel room. I did slip into the bathtub, to a warm bath, and started seeing really cool, ornate Japanese patterns on the bathroom, and I realized that I was hallucinating.
Yes.
I was like, these walls were white when I left for the race.
So
I don't.
during the 50 miles, what was your food intake? Because you had no experience. Please tell me you did eat and
I
drink.
did eat the night before the race. Dr. David Horton, uh, a very renowned ultra marathoner, had given a speech, and he had given a lot of advice. The standard advice: don't try anything new on race day. Don't try anything you haven't tried before.
Everything was new with you, Jeff.
But then he talked about his when he set the fastest known time for the Appalachian Trail, which is several thousand miles, that he had used some of those boost energy drinks that are kind of marketed towards the elderly people, and I thought that sounds like not such a bad idea. So I went to the grocery store after the seminar and bought myself a 6-pack of the Boost Energy drinks that had 360 calories in an 8-ounce bottle, and slugged one of those down each time I came back around the loop. And that was my primary source of fueling. I've never been able to eat real solid food during my runs. It's just,
Yeah, I'm the same with you on that. Yeah, but are you on gels? Do you like gels or?
gels
I
upset my
cannot.
digestive system.
Yeah, a lot of people can't take gels. So then you came fifth. You realised, hang on a minute, I've got something going here. What was the next race?
Someone told me that maybe I could benefit from having a running coach. So I contacted a coach, and he asked me what my goals were, and I said, well, I want to qualify for the National Senior Olympics in the 5 and the 10K runs, and I also want to do a 100-mile race. And those two events were only a couple months apart. So he kind of chuckled and says, you're going to make things interesting for us here, And so he got me on a plan. I ran an 18:26 5K to qualify for the Senior Olympics. And then 2 months later, finished my first 100-mile race. And
You're a machine. Okay. And where was this
then,
Senior Olympics?
the Senior Olympics, those were the qualifying races. They were in my home state of Maryland. And then the Senior Olympics were the following summer in Birmingham, Alabama. And while I training for them, I blew out my hamstring.
Oh no.
Speed workout on the track, and the owner of the company I was working for at the time knew of a physical therapist that he highly recommended. So I went to Dr. Paul Schweitzer, who happened to be a 18-time Boston Marathon finisher. And he says, "What are you here for?" I said, "Well, I blew my hamstring out." He goes, "How'd you do that?" I said, "I was doing speed work on the track." He goes, "What are you training for?" I said, the National Senior Olympics, the 5 and the 10K runs. He goes, "When are they?" I said, "June 9th. He got his calendar out. He looked at it. He said, "That's 5 weeks from now." He looked me square in the eye. He goes, "Jeff, we don't have time for you to be a sissy."
I love it. Okay.
He's like, I know people like you. You're going to run that race regardless of whether I tell you to or not. So we got 5 weeks to get you in shape, because I'm going to tell you right now, you are not to do any running between now and race day. And so
Okay.
I did three days a week of physical therapy with them, everything from dry needling to cold laser to, oh Lord, I forget all of the things he put me through.
But it worked. You
I
went?
could ride my my bicycle. That bothered the hamstring. So about a week and a half before I was to leave for Birmingham, Alabama, and the Senior Olympics, he still didn't like where we were at, so he sent me to a friend. We'd determined that it was the tendon that attaches the hamstring to the glute that was angry. Wasn't necessarily torn or ripped, but it was severely inflamed and angry. And again, he said, "I know you're going to run this." He goes, "So I'm going to send you to my buddy, doctor. Because he'll shoot that tendon up with steroids, and you're going to run your race, and we'll fix the damage when you get home." And
that was it. So you ran it, obviously. We are talking about you here. And what did you come?
I finished, I took the bronze medal in both the 5 and the 10K.
Well done. Now,
Yeah.
please tell me, because you said the 100 marathon was not long after, you didn't do that as well, did you?
I had finished a 100-mile marathon prior to blowing my hamstring out.
Oh, so you did achieve your 2 goals.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, congratulations. And then
Yeah.
you rested, obviously, and you took time out to fix your issue.
Sort of. Here we are 2.5 years later, and I still have some issues with my hamstring. I just have to manage it and make sure at the first signs of any kind of angriness that I back off and address the issue. So I haven't had, the hamstring has not sidelined me since. I did have a terrible bout with overtraining syndrome a year and a half ago. It went undiagnosed. I went to all sorts of specialists.
Can you explain to us what the symptoms are?
Overtraining syndrome is when your endocrine system floods your body with cortisol, and it's just your body's reaction to just shutting down because you've pushed your body past the point of being able to recover.
Okay.
It was, I'd been racing, and running and doing well. And then I remembered doing quarter mile repeats on the track August 23rd of 2018. And I just had nothing. I could do the quarter mile sprints, but I had to walk in between the intervals. And pardon me, normally I jog in between, and I just remembered feeling like there was nothing. It felt like my bone marrow was tired.
So how long did it take you to recover from this?
Well, like I said, it went undiagnosed. I managed to actually qualify for the Senior Olympics here in the States are held every 2 years. So the qualifying races were in September of that year, and I first saw the symptoms in August. I did manage to, I started the 5K race, got a half mile in, and had to quit. And
just your body just shut down?
Just shut down. There was nothing. I had nothing. Like I said, my bone marrow felt tired. The 10K qualifier was 3 weeks later, and I knew if I ran it based on my previous performances there, if I ran it, if I just finished it, I could still qualify for the National Senior Olympics. And so I went down there. I ran a full 7 minutes slower than I had the previous year when I qualified, but I still ended up qualifying for the Senior Olympics. But I was wiped out. The overtraining syndrome, OTS, it's hard to diagnose. You kind of just have to rule everything else out, you know? And so I got tested for rheumatoid arthritis. I got tested for, Lyme's disease. I got tested for everything, and they just couldn't put they couldn't
put their finger on it.
They couldn't put their finger on it. And I just started a new job. I'd left my old job that I'd worked at this other company for 29 years. And actually the job that I actually got fired from that started me to quit drinking was a temporary break from this company that I'd worked for 29 years. They hired me back. But they got taken over by another company, so I switched companies. So I was with a new company, and I had to go to work. I just started with the company, so I'm going to work. But I was so tired, I had to take breaks in the middle of brushing my teeth. Oh. I had to sit down on the edge of the tub and take a several-minute break while I was brushing my teeth. That's how exhausted I was from this overtraining syndrome. And I had to go to work because I started a new job, so I was making it into work, but I was falling asleep at red lights on the drive home. When I got home, we have a very short driveway, but I couldn't even walk from the car to the house. I had to stop. And by the time I could go to see an endocrinologist, I don't want to get into how screwed up our healthcare system is here, but it took
but it took a while to sort it out. So so if we jump forward a bit, then are you over it now?
I am. It took 4 months for me to get an appointment with the endocrinologist, and by the time I got that appointment, the symptoms had started to subside. But he's the one that said more than likely this was overtraining syndrome. And it usually takes from 6 months to 2 years to resolve itself. And I was very fortunate that I was on the short end of that, and it resolved itself in 6 months.
So it's just a case of complete rest. So did you not have to
Complete
work and
rest.
everything? Just complete bed rest?
Yeah, complete rest. Like I said, I had to drag myself to work, but that was it. I was doing the bare minimum I had to do to get through life. And after 6 months, I decided that I would get on the treadmill at the gym. And
No stopping you. Those trainers are coming back on.
I would monitor my heart rate. I told myself I'll keep my heart rate under 140 beats per minute, and I'll run, for as long as I can. And it was I could only do it for a few minutes at the start.
Did you worry, even when you started on the treadmill and you started getting tired, because obviously your body's getting used to exertion again, did you think, oh no, I'm not recovered yet, maybe I should stop?
Oh, I'm still gun shy about it. I'm still gun shy. I'll finish a hard run or a hard workout, and the next day wonder if it just triggered a setback.
So you got on the treadmill, and then have you done a race since?
Yeah. I competed in the National Senior Olympics again in Albuquerque, New Mexico. They were at altitude, so I didn't do quite as well. I was not. I was only about 1 month out from recovering from the overtraining syndrome, so I didn't have a lot of training in me. I went into that race about 2.5 stones heavier than my normal competition weight. And
You feel it, don't you, when you're running and you've put weight on? You're like,
oh,
I feel like
good
a concrete elephant.
yeah,
Each
exactly.
step, you're like, the legs are like concrete lampposts,
Yeah. So I took 8th place in the 5K and 5th place in the 10K. So I was happy with that, considering what I'd just come through. I finished another 100-miler last November, and race a whole lot. I'm lucky if I get 5 races in a year.
And how have you coped with 2020 with the COVID and races not happening?
Fortunately, because I don't race a whole lot, I haven't missed a lot of races. There's a couple of key races that have been canceled, but my training's been going strong. I run 3 or 4 days a week, try to cycle a day a week.
Part of your training, does that involve hills and tempo running, or do you just get the trainers on and do a Forrest Gump and just run?
When I'm targeting a race, I will do hill repeats. I'll do intervals. I'll do track workouts. With no real races on the horizon, I tend to just Forrest Gump it and just go out there. So the one big thing I'm missing is the gym has been closed, so I haven't been able to do any of my
Strength.
my weight workouts. I have a set of weights down in the barn, but I saw a pesky little. He wasn't little. I saw a pesky black rat snake slither underneath my weight sets at the beginning of the season, and
That's it.
I've been hesitant to visit those weights ever since I
Agree.
our little buddy making his home inside of them.
So Jeff, you talk about two extreme distances, 5K, 10K, should I say, and then you go to a 100th marathon. What is your favorite distance?
Oh, that is tough to say because my friends who are non-runners don't understand it when I tell them that a 5K hurts just as much as a 100-miler. It's I go out and I push as hard as I can on a 5K. So it's a lot of extreme pain condensed into 18 to 20 minutes versus the long, drawn out misery of a 100-miler. So I'm not sure. I think I like the 50-mile distance. The one thing the pandemic did with is I had a goal of running a sub 5-minute mile this year. And I was going to do it at the USA Track Field National Masters meet. And then that got canceled. So I was like, well, all right, that's fine. But then there's a local Main Street Mile, 1 mile race. And I was like, well, I can do my sub 5-minute mile at that race. And that got canceled. And without having a race to train for, it's really hard for me to motivate to get out there and do the kind of speed work that's required to attempt a sub 5-minute mile. So
But you're still going out generally anyway. Would you say that the running in the last 5 or 6 years has helped you with the alcohol, being your new
absolutely.
advice?
Absolutely. And I do recognize it as an addiction, and need to try to make sure that I manage that. It's a good addiction. It's a healthy addiction.
You're talking about running now. You're talking about running.
Yeah. Although some people may tell you that running 100 miles is not good for your body.
But you'll prove them wrong. You've done it how many times?
I've finished them twice. I'm 2 for 4. I have 2 DNFs. Did not finish 100 milers, and 2 that I completed. If you look on Ultra Sign Up, you might not see my DNFs because I got credited with shorter distances in those races. But in my mind, they were DNFs. I didn't finish what I set out to accomplish. So
If travel wasn't a problem, what race would you love to do? If any race in the world, what would, because at the moment they've all been round, in America, around where you are.
Yeah.
But if obviously there's famous races all around the world, what would be your dream race?
Probably the Comrades race in
South Africa.
Yep.
Yeah, I did a podcast with Dion Earls about the
cool.
Comrades. So have a listen; it's very good. Especially when he says about the DNFs as well. But yes, have a listen to the Comrade experience there. I agree. That's one race I would love to do, but I'm no good at heat, Jeff. I would love to do the Comrades.
Neither am I. And I'm. Yes, on the surface, I've had some accomplishments, but I don't consider myself a real strong runner. For me, the 100.
You're joking. You've done Senior Olympics. You've done 100 marathon.
But the 100-mile distance for me is challenge enough. And in this jump into this whole new world to me of running. I've got to meet a lot of very wonderful friends, and they'll pick these crazy 100-milers that are through the mountains. Then there's, the bad water that goes through Death Valley, the hottest spot on the earth. It's a 135-mile race. And I've got friends that are constantly asking me, why don't you do this one? Why don't you do that one? I'm like, I don't need to add any difficulty. Like, miles is difficult enough for me. I don't need, I don't need to wade through lions and alligators and climb mountains. And, so I run what in my mind I consider fairly easy 100-milers, but they're never easy.
So let's round this off, Jeff. So for anyone that is someone that's currently in the situation you was, minus 12 years ago, what advice would you give?
The best advice I could give is that you can live without alcohol. Like I spent every waking moment when I wasn't working and I wasn't sleeping, every moment I had a drink in my hand. And that was the most fearful thing for me, was how am I going to navigate through life? How am I going to get through life without this? It was such an ingrained part of my life. And I realized I was missing so much of life. There was so much I was letting just go right by me because either I was too blasted to pay attention to what was happening, or I was not in a condition to be able to drive to go, to go enjoy a concert or anything else. And the amount of life that I've lived in the last 12 years far exceeds the other 44 years of my life that I spent in such a fog of drinking. It boggles my mind how much you can actually get out there and enjoy.
And it sounds like you've had amazing experiences as well, just in the last few years, even though, again, your health has been affected, but not through alcohol, through overtraining. You're back on your feet again, and it was a shorter recovery. And
yeah.
Just huge respect.
So yeah, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of what life's going to be like without alcohol, because you'll find that once you step over that threshold, there's going to be so much that you're going to enjoy, and it's going to boggle your mind how much is actually out there that you can participate in, that you can be a part of, instead of sitting on your couch in a dark living room, or sitting in a dark smoky bar. Well, I guess they're not smoky anymore, but you know what I'm saying.
I do.
So yeah, if you can cross that threshold, you're going to realize what a beautiful life there is, and what a beautiful world there is to be had. And you're not tied down, you're not burdened by alcohol.
And I have to ask, 100 miles, what mentally, what makes you get through those 100 miles? What do you think about? What makes you get through them? Because you're doing these in one go. This isn't sections over a weekend. You're doing 100 miles.
No, it's straight through. It's straight through. Inevitably, at least for me, I reach some really, really dark points in my race, and points where I want to quit, or where I don't like it, and I just try to tell myself that this too shall pass. Keep moving forward, and the it's
Time and miles will tick by.
exactly. And I've taken to the mindset when I go into these 100-mile races now that I'm not running 100 miles. I'm just spending 24 to 28 hours partying with my friends. I just happen to be on my feet the whole time.
That's a good way to end it.
And that's kind of the mindset that I use to get me going. And another thing I like to do is, no matter how terrible I feel, if the wheels have fallen off, if I pass another runner or another runner passes me, I always give them words of encouragement. Even if they look like they're in far worse shape than I am, I'll tell them, "You're looking strong. You're looking great. Keep it up." And I think that kind of helps me as well. Just
Support.
moving forward. Yeah.
Just support. Well, thanks for that, Jeff, and thanks for your tale on Running Tales podcast.